Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is the Forging Podcast, episode 6, and I'm joined here by Mark Kelly. Mark, welcome.
Graham, lovely to be here.
Good to see you. So this is where trials refine us and stories ignite strength. And I am delighted to have you in, Mark, because we've had a number of conversations over the last, before Christmas. I think what you've set up from assisting professional sportsmen in the background that you've been working on is a brilliant our equilibrium. We'll talk about that later. But let's talk about you as a footballer. So you were part of a brilliant Portsmouth squad in the late 80s, early 90s. Jim Smith, the manager. Jim Smith touted you as the next George Best. And in fact, you won your first Irish cap before you won your first team cap for Portsmouth, which is pretty phenomenal. And then you had that career-changing injury at 21. So huge roller coaster. Before we get into your family, just... Can you just touch upon that bit? Give us a bit of an idea of what it was like to be a wonder kid at 18 years old.
Yeah, it was it was kind of a natural process. It's kind of a weird thing because football came quite easy to me, really. It wasn't, It was something I did, I loved, I enjoyed, it was everything. But from a very early stage, I mean, I signed for Borley, I signed for Portsmouth on Associate Schoolboys at 14 and was part of that until I got my scholarship at 16, or apprenticeship as we used to be back then. So I signed as an apprentice at 16 years of age. I actually moved from Portsmouth to Basingstoke where we all grew up. So myself, Kit Simons, Lee Samford, all those boys, we all grew up together in Basingstoke. So there was quite a little crew of us actually joined similar times. So the day I came in, Borley was the manager.
Legend.
Yeah, had a very good relationship, close relationship with him in the end. Yeah, so from that point, I signed my first pro contract at 17, was starting to get into the squad. Yeah. So I was becoming part of the first team environment at that stage. Still going to college one day a week in Southampton, but then that was getting knocked on the head because now I was becoming a first team member. So it's like, education, get rid of it. Your sport's taking over. Yeah, from that point of view, it was a bit of a roller coaster. So I was getting in and around the squads, getting close to it, and then was kind of making appearances off the bench. Played a lot of times for the Republic of Ireland. Also played for England youth at that time as well.
Oh, right, I see, yeah.
So I was playing for England and Ireland, had to declare for who I was going to play for. Went through that little ruling and declared Ireland because both my parents are very Irish family. We're a big, strong Irish Catholic family. So, yeah, I mean, that was the breakdown, really. But from that point, so I was starting to raise lots of interest. And then it was Borley that actually quoted the next George Best. So then that kind of kicked up a bit of a media whirl as well.
How did you deal with that pressure?
Well, to be honest, I was eating grass for about the next 6 weeks because that just lined me up to be kicked everywhere I went, as you could imagine. You know, fullbacks now rubbing. Exactly, there you go. Fullbacks rubbing that, George Best, here we go. So, it kind of, it put me into a bit of an element, really, but that was Borley. He was heart on his sleeve. He was just voicing what he saw. But I'd been playing for the Republic with the youth team, the Jack Charlton, so knew Jack very well.
What a guy as well.
The lad called Morris Setters was his number 2. Morris played Man United, but Morris obviously played for the youth teams. He was the youth team coach, and then the under-21s, under-23s. So I was flying everywhere playing football, Graham. I was never hardly at home.
Life.
Yeah, Borley was getting a bit peeved with it because I'd be like, I'm on another trip, so I'll be packing my bags. He's like, where are you going now? I said, well, there's an under-21s tournament that I'm off to. So I was playing for nearly every team, every squad. But then one afternoon, I got called into the office, Borley's office, and he said, you got to pack your bags because Jack's called you out for the first team. I hadn't played a game for Portsmouth at this point. I'd been sub, and I'd played a few sub games and that type of stuff. But he said, no, Jack wants you to go over and play. So I got off the plane and off over I went.
My goodness.
So, it was just a whirlwind. From school, you can imagine, you kind of step off the school environment and then you go straight into it. But then it's like, it's a perpetual role of just being put forward and playing games. And
being built up.
Yeah, totally that. And away we went from there. So I ended up flying into Dublin. Seriously, literally landed into a press conference the day before.
Were you given press training?
No. Thrown in. So I've got thrown into a room. There's there's journalists up and down. I'm sitting on the table. There's journalists up and down, and they're all firing questions at me. And I'm like, you can imagine a rabbit in the headlights.
And you're
I'm
18
thinking,
years
no.
old.
I was only in training on Monday, and now it's all gone nuts. What's happening?
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the kind of journey that I went on.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just kind of a really, really crazy role from that point.
So I can't even begin to imagine what that would feel like. I've never achieved anything like that in sport. But you know, I've got sons, and like my number one son, he's trained to be a bodybuilder, and I'm just trying to think what it would be like for him if suddenly he wins his pro card, and then he's going to Mr. Olympia potentially, and then gets an injury. Like, I can't imagine what that would go through. I don't know how he'd cope with that. You were being built up, and rightly so, because you were a very promising talent. You were a very attacking-minded winger, weren't you? So you'd take defenders on, and would you say you're like Josh Murphy? Would you?
Yeah. Listen, I was quick, I was fast. I loved taking players on. I actually enjoyed the element of getting kicked, physicality.
Oh, really?
Is
that the Irish in you?
It was the Irish in me. It was the stubborn Irishman in me, for sure.
Yeah,
so I used to enjoy that side of it because, you know, it's the way I played. I kind of played edgy on the edge. But
so Portsmouth would have loved you as well. We love that.
Pompey fans do. Yeah. Fans did. They took to me completely at that point. Listen, it was a journey from there, and obviously within that, success was happening quite a lot across the board. That Pompey team were a good
brilliant
side.
Team, yeah.
So I was playing with some
Chamberlain,
brilliant,
Anderson, Simmons.
But before that, even before that, I think, you know, you're talking about Micky Kennedy's.
You were in the same place?
Yeah. So Micky Kennedy's, Kevin O'Callaghan. I was the baby of the team coming through that process. Vince Hilaire, Noel Blake.
I still see Vince around South.
Exactly. Big Blakey. Yeah. So, you know, we were having quite a lot of success at that point. But also, I think if we go back to the Ireland thing, they'd never ever got to any championships. But that year they got to the
88.
They got to the European Championships, and it was the first time the country had ever got there. So the country went nuts.
Yeah.
We were in training camps over there. It was like I was the
And you were the wonder kid.
I was the wonder kid, baby of the team. So there was a lot of, again, loads of limelight thrown on it everywhere.
So how did you deal with that kind of? It is an adoration, and I don't just through talk to you now, I don't think you felt the pressure on the pitch. It feels like you were loved it.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that attention, like being thrown into a press conference? Obviously, your name is suddenly in lights everywhere. Everyone in Ireland wants to know who you are, and of course, you'd have built your stock here at Portsmouth as well. So how did you deal with that? And were you given coping mechanisms, or did you just absolutely lap it up? Did you love it?
Never any coaching or teaching or learning. No, I was just totally thrown into it, and it was like,
that's mad, isn't it?
I didn't really understand it. If I'm totally honest, it was a little bit naive to it all, because I remember at the first press conference, the journalist asked me, well, you know, you're like on a world stage now, so how does that feel? And I'm like, well, it's football. Do you know what I mean? It's a game of football. And I'm like, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know, but out of my naivety, I'm just very much like, well, no, it's just part of running around, you know, and you could
I suppose
you could feel it in the room. I never really understood the attention part of it. Never. Luckily, I've got a brilliant family.
Good. So you had that strong.
Which absolutely, you go back into that remit, and you're just the little runt of the litter. And, I don't know, with your brothers, you go back to that process. Yeah. So there was a nice balance between families, friends, everybody around me that would just keep it normal and natural, to actually just trying to work it out. But absolutely right, there was no training towards it. And as I said to you, some of the situations were just crazy. It was just you must
have some pretty good. We'll come to try and coax some stories out of you. But that time when you were 18, you don't have those coping strategies. Did that come because you were, as in you managed to deal with it clearly, but is that because, like you said, you were an apprentice at 14? Did you understand that route, what that looked like ahead of you then? And from a young age, were you kind of like, well, I am obviously going to be a professional footballer. That is my future. Did you already know that?
And you'd have it at school that you'd have these career days, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's all good. I know where I'm going. And, no, your teachers were going, listen, I'm like, no, I'm going to be a professional footballer. That's what I'm being. And it was that pure belief that was what
that's awesome.
There was never a doubt. There was never a process of this isn't going to happen. It was like, no, it's all steam ahead, and let's just get on with it.
That in a way would have your mindset, if it had already kind of accepted that, it's kind of training really, because you would have probably seen people ahead of you doing that, and you're like, well, I'll be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, as I said to you, that's why I wanted to bring it back to the Vince Hilaire's. There were some really, really good old pros that had seen everything and done lots of things. Yeah, when you're the baby in the group, there's a lot of learning that goes on between pros, you know.
Arms around the shoulder, right, lad, don't do that, do this. Yeah. So it's like a family, isn't it? I suppose a broader family.
It really is. No, I mean, that's, and Borley was always brilliant. It was like the football family. This is what it is, you know, and he'd always have them because obviously with the Alf Ramseys and the World Cups and the things that he grew and the experiences he had, it was all about the football family. And that's how he delivered it. That's how he always delivered it with us as young players.
Sorry. So I kept saying Jim Smith there.
No, Jim came later. Jim was later part of the journey, but Borley.
Forgive me. So Borley was first.
So Borley used to. It was funny because when we all grew up, so if you had Kit in the room with, you know, if we all came and sat and taught Sanford, and you know, Borley was the driver. We had a little satellite centre in Basingstoke, and it was at Beach Down. There's a little squash club called Beach Down. Right. That's where we used to do our indoor training, and Borley would come up, and it'd always be there.
Oh wow!
Always be there on a Wednesday night. Borley would always turn up and take the training. So
okay,
so it was taking.
So there was already a link.
Oh yeah, it was taking the first team, but it'd always come out and do all the training with the kids and stuff. He was so brilliant.
Does that still happen today?
No, your first team manager would never see what goes on. But that's why when you see Darryl Powell...
Is there value in that, though?
Oh, well, look
exactly. So
look at what
happened.
First team managers now, it's all about, you know, unfortunately, the pressures of professional sport where it is, they've got 6 games to succeed or they don't. So there's only one.
So
there's only one thing they can think of, but that's not how it was managed back then, you know. So, yeah, but that's why we were so attached to Borley, because Borley took us as kids. So we were learning off a World Cup winner even at the age of 14. So
of course, that legacy coming through. Yes,
that's where the training comes from. So we were all learning the processes from Borley at that point. Yeah,
I interviewed Alan Knight as well previously. And speaking to a lot of these guys, Crawford, Ashley, there are key members or key people within their careers that really did stand out and give them that kind of guiding hand through to where they got to and what they achieved. And Alan Ball, when you hear about humans that do that and have that levity and strength of presence, and of course being a World Cup winner will always help you in a football team. It's just it's really lovely to hear, and it's you saying that these things don't happen anymore. I understand the pressures of professional modern day sport. Like Mousinho, if you think before Christmas, I'd say at least 40% of Pompey fans were going, he probably needs to go. Yeah. He's the most promising manager in the country, as far as I'm concerned. If you think about the budget he's using and everything, and Richard Hughes, I think, did a great job in the January transfer market. We'll talk about bits of that later, but the thought that he could go and work with some of this youth team, which is, and again, it's a big part of your career. Now I'm just piecing things together with what, as I'm talking to you. Right, we'll come to that in a minute. So he wouldn't ever get involved in the academy just to watch the boys and go like Teo Singer or anyone like that.
You'll have some crossover. I'm not saying that you know, you might go and train with them, might train with the youth team or whatever. But
it was much more, it was a more paternal role with Alan Ball.
Borley knew that was the way. It was all about relationships. It was all about building
human connection.
Always, because that's how he grew up. That's how he went through the process. On the Saturday morning, the youth team would play down at Moneyfields. And then the first team would obviously be playing home that afternoon. Every time he was at home, we were at home, Borley was always at the youth team game.
He watched the Moneyfields first?
Always. It'd always come down. And the bottom line, like the game would finish and it'd huddle us all in and go, look, I've got to go and deal with the big heads now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. So he's building a great rapport with you boys.
He have to apologise for us because he's got to leave to go and do this thing.
What a bloke!
It was just the way he managed things, and I learned a lot of, you know, that kind of relationship management from him. Do you know what I mean? And it was, they were good times.
So it sounds like, just as a good segue into this bit, so it sounds like you admired him and the way he approached the sport. So you have this career-ending injury. I know you had opportunities to try and resurrect your career afterwards, but you're near blown and gone, and it was you weren't as sharp and quick or anything. So I think as a very competitive guy, you want to be at the top of your game, and I'm making some assumptions here. But...
No. I mean, and surgeons were like, it was a proper mess, but we'll talk about how it happened that night. But it was a proper mess. It was a lateral medial cruciate snap. It was 7, 8 operations trying to get cartilage, no cartilage left, nothing left in it. So they were like, look, if you continue, you can't. If you continue
Bone on
on a
bone.
life,
You won't.
continue on a life, you won't be walking by the time you're 35. You know, it was that kind of changing element. It wasn't just one little injury. It was a accumulation of. It was accumulation of 8 operations, and you know, coming back, breaking down, coming back, breaking down, and trying to get through the process of it. But then having the pressures of other things as well, because at that point, I'm getting phone calls from Jack. Look, you know, Italy,
Italy 90.
World Cups, there's this, there's that. Are you going to be fit? Are you going to be back? So I'm pushing myself to be fit and back, breaking down. So there was a whole mental process of all of that within just trying to come back.
So then what was the incident that created the injury first? And then so
if I take you back a little bit,
please,
because it really kind of defines a lot of things, I think. So as I said, at the time, so the European 88 was a big thing. Ireland exploded, so I was a big part of that, and you know what was going on. Before that, so I made my full debut at Old Trafford against Man United, but the lads, Paul McGrath, Frank Stapleton, Kevin Moran, obviously I'd all played in the Ireland team with, so I knew the lads. So I'm a young lad, you know, at that point, making my debut at Old Trafford. I'm in the tunnel, so this is kind of the mindset. This is the mindset stuff I'm trying to explain to you. So I'm in the tunnel, Brian Robson comes out, stands next to me, right? And obviously the lads are like, you know, he's trying to give me one. He's trying to like pin it on me. He's like, do you know who I am? So I'm not even talking to him. I'm just looking forward. And he's giving it to me constantly. Do you know who I am? And I'm like, I'm just ignoring him. Anyway, we go out and play and the game starts. And I'm having a good game. Things are going on. He kicks me, gets a yellow card. So there's a lot of stick. And he's like, you know who I am now. And he's giving it. He's really properly giving it to me. But Gordon Strachan's laughing because Gordon was on the wing. He picked me up. He went, Kelser, he's just trying to wind you up. And I'm like, I've appreciated that from minute one. So that was kind of like the step into the environment, if you know what I mean. I'm kind of laying that out because that's the kind of way that part of my life rolled. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of level intensity. Played the game. Ferguson called me into his office after the game. So Matt Busby's up there. My dad came in. So Matt was like, it was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a young boy. So it was like a roller coaster of these things, the scenarios happening. So that goes on. And I think at the end of that season, I went home to my mum and dad's. And I slept for about 3 weeks because I worked out I'd played 87 games in one season because I was playing for every international group.
Yeah, it's 21s,
then I'd come
seniors.
home. I'd play for the first team. I'd play for the youth team. So there was no real management of what was happening to me.
She didn't have anyone that was looking at the sports science aspect of your body.
In the end, I got to a point where I was like, who am I playing for today? Where am I? And there was no management of it. It was too much. It was too much going on too early with nobody managing it, which is brilliant now. You watch today,
of course,
you know, things are managed so much better. But for me, because it was like everybody wanted you to play because it was part of what it was, but there was just absolutely no management of it whatsoever.
But was that just common across the board? If you're a promising young lad, it's part of your you've just got to play as much as you can. But 87 highest level competitive matches in a season.
Yeah.
Because obviously 21s is elite level.
You're going to like
everything.
I remember I went to East Germany, Finland, Denmark. I was on planes and I was coming back. I used to, again, because it was through the time, it was just crazy times, but through the time of, if the flight got in late, I'm getting the milk train back to Portsmouth at 6 o'clock. So I'm lying on the station. I'm sitting on Waterloo Station waiting for, you know, how I get back to Portsmouth. So there was a bit of that going on as well. It was like, it wasn't only the return.
Gosh, so you weren't getting the proper rest either?
No. There was no rest, recovery, and then it's like, you know, back into the training mode.
Yeah, because all these different teams aren't talking to each other. They don't really care. They just want to make sure Mark Kelly's playing.
Whoever's there.
There you go, get home, see you later. And then they're like, where's Mark Kelly?
Yeah.
So no one's there putting their arm around you going, right, we need to get you back.
Yeah.
We need you rest. So those paternal people then, and so we're building up this picture of you are physically battered a lot.
Yeah.
But,
and the contacts as well.
You
could imagine football was a little bit different.
Of course. Much different then.
Contacts.
Yeah. 2-foot tackles is normal.
So you are getting properly whacked everywhere you're going. So you're taking a lot of pact as well.
It doesn't take much to consider what you're putting your body through that regularly. So an Allen Ball or someone, didn't they put their arm around you and go, Mark, we need to really consider about how much you're playing here. We need you to be fresher for us. Or did that not happen then?
No, it wasn't happening.
Or it's like, oh, he's young, he's resilient. That's fine.
That's it. Just young and vibrant. And
that's mad. So therefore, in this time, it's going to physically affect you. So you slept for those 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And of course, the next season's probably going to be the same, pretty much.
Yeah.
So you are unwittingly buggering up your body, of course, your joints, your ankles, your knees, etc. So you're unaware of any of this going on. And physiotherapy back then was a magic sponge.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And so you're loving life because you're doing what you love to do, but at the same time, you don't really understand that you're actually knackering your body.
Yeah, it's not being managed. It's not being managed.
So when did you start to realise actually this isn't good?
To be honest, it wasn't really until the injury hit that night. That night changed everything. So
what was that? What?
So the night was, we played Luton on their old Astro, and that was rubbish. It was one of the first ones in. Venables brought it back from one of his trips to America. I think he was the first group to bring it back. But they were horrible. They were. There was no giving them. They were like, it was near enough concrete.
And you can't
underneath.
twist
you can't
on
pivot,
it.
You can't spin. Yeah. So I got off the bus to play the game, but then it was one of those situations, kind of came short to go long, if you know what I mean. This is a bit of a technical term. I came to go short to go long, but Gavin Maguire, I don't remember Gavin played one short. I wanted to go long, but he played short. So then I had to pivot the other way.
Oh, so
and as I
changed direction.
Yeah, changed direction, but really quickly. So it was like in, spin, gone. And on grass, your studs would pivot.
Yeah.
And it didn't. What it did was my foot stuck, and as I twisted, it snapped.
Oh.
The same time, the balls dropped this side of me, and a lad called Tim Braker, and it wasn't Tim's fault because, you know, he was fully committed to go in for the challenge. As my foot is stuck and snapped, he's come straight through the side of it at the same time. So it's a bit like a wraparound. So I couldn't even jump because my foot was stuck.
The damage had slightly been done, and then he just finished.
And the impact just went straight through it. You can imagine he's flying that way. I couldn't pivot, so the whole thing just went out of line and snapped. But honestly, I remember it kind of like, it was one of those things that I got up, and because the damage was what it was, my leg wasn't straight. So when I stood up, I always had this thing bounce, you know, get up, bounce, bounce, and then see how you are. So I got up, stood up, but I just remember there's about 10 rows of the people in the chairs. And I looked at their faces as they're looking at me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like,
you're looking at their reaction.
I'm seeing their reaction, and then I'm looking down thinking, where's my leg? Do you know what I mean? But it had where it was, the synovial fluid had already kind of kept it bent, so it locked in that position. And that was it. Medical team come running on and sorting it out. And then I got put on the bus. So I didn't go to hospital, I was put on the bus. Because they wanted me to be checked out down here.
To QA?
Yeah. So this is the crazy thing. This is the mad world of sport that we lived in at that point, because, you know, you'd never get it.
Wherever you get looked at straight away.
So I'm on the back. I'm on the bus. It's strapped. It's packed. It's
bit of ice.
It's a bit of ice. Packed, strapped. You know, still bent, on crutches. But we lived in Milton, down Godwick Road. So you know where the companion pub is?
Yes, yeah.
I got off the bus there and just was on my crutches. I left the lads. I said to the lads, throw my bag in. And I got to the front door, and obviously girlfriend was like, what's going on? I'm like, well, I've got to go and see tomorrow. So that was the start of the run. I went from there, and they're like, right, your cruciate snapped, your medial's hanging on, but we're going to have to probably stitch it, tape it. And that was the start of the run. And as I said to you, if you look over a 4-year period, I'd come back. I'd get back in the Ireland team, but back in Portsmouth first team, go again. McCartledge would go or whatever, because we had a little run of they were desperately trying to keep a bit of cartilage in there, because if you're bone on bone at the age of 21, it's just not a good place to be.
Yeah.
But it couldn't, so I just said to them at the end, after 4 or 5 of those, just whip it out, and we'll try and get on with what we're doing. Continue to do that. At that point, I just had to make the decision.
So how old were you when you suddenly
I was 24 at that point.
So then you had, what, 3 years of just trying?
3 years of rehab. Yeah, the mental process.
You were still
rehab.
contracted until 24?
Yeah.
So at what point did you start going, I don't think this is going to get better? I think
24 was the only,
so that was the point where you suddenly went,
it was
nah.
the only time that I actually had to come to that final decision. So, the surgeons were telling me they were pointing it all towards that, and so were the physios, but I'm like, no, I'll get on and get it done, and trying to push through. But at that point, then I'm like, no. As soon as I made that decision, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And as you said, I continued the journey a little bit because I went to America. I went and did other things, but these were just, people that I kind of knew. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, look, I can't train every day. I can't do it that much.
So did you understand the importance of networking then? Or was it just an accidental kind of development?
Do you know, I've always been like it. I said to you, do you know, I think it was because how we grew up, we brought in, the relationships you build with people. I think that's always been there. I like relationships. I like people.
Yeah.
It's my things. No, I think from that point on a bit of a journey then. So now I'm like completely lost at this point.
So of course, after that incredible upbringing through the ranks into the Iron Squad, knowing Jack Charlton, speak to Brian Robinson at Old Trafford, playing some mad football, it being in the Euro '88, and having this future that you would have probably been thinking by the age of 30, I hope to have a few million in the bank. Do you think like that as a pro? You want to put money away? Did you not think like that?
I never felt. I just loved the game. I loved football and I loved it, and because it wasn't a stage thing for me, as in time period. I think most people look like that they build their career, but I was just playing, just rolling, just going, just doing.
Never checking the bank account.
Never checking it. Never really.
Because you played for that. You just loved it.
It was that thing. It was never that thought of, this is going to buy me Ferraris and big houses. It was literally just I did it because I loved it. Is the key.
So then, 24. You get to 24. You've had 3 years of trying, and your body's going, no, mate, you're done. What was that a mental cliff, or did you have an inbuilt resilience because you've come from a strong family and you've been brought up with faith as well? Did you lean on faith? What kind of got you through those dark times? Or were they dark? That's a silly question potentially, but
dark as in. Yeah, mentally it was tough, but not as tough to go to completely dark places. There was periods of months of confusion. I'd call it more confusion for me.
Okay.
It was like, wow, because the realization of who I am, what I am, outside of this thing, it was really reflective. It was really difficult for me to find. From that point, but I didn't really know too much about me, if you know what I mean, at that point, because I'm going with the flows. You're in a limelight situation.
So this was your first real challenge?
This was the first real time.
Not getting an Ireland cap, not playing first in Pompey.
Because this
was your first challenge.
It was the first challenge, because even though I'd been going through the rehabs and my mind was still in the place, no, it's fine, I'll get through that, I'm going to do that.
You had hope that everything was going
and the club was still connecting, do you know what I mean? And you're still going through that run. That really didn't even come into it at that point, which is probably a weird thing because a lot of people might start thinking about it. But I was like, no, I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm still going to get to where I want to go, and I'll, get back to running around and doing what I'm doing. 24, it was that point. As soon as that was it, and I kind of made that mine, then that was the void. I'm going to have to start looking at this in a different way, because I didn't realise much about myself because I didn't have time to. I didn't have time to develop or grow or.
It's definitely different.
Do you know what I mean? I didn't have, and those words weren't out there. You didn't really understand that anyway.
Yeah.
But reflectively, that was the first time we had those challenges. But I think from a young age, as I said to you just off before we started, Angie, my wife, went through a lot of stuff when we were kids. We met each other when we were 18 and I'm going through this football run, which is fine, but she got really sick. And funny, Kemp Ray, one of your other people you had on one of the podcast, his brother suffered from SLE and so did Angie. And at the time, it was like a process of you wouldn't really know which way it was going to go. And
But you understood the severity at the time.
Oh yeah, we were very, very in touch with this could end up at the worst point. So I think I grew up quite quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I'm
if you're suddenly having to accept that as a possibility
100%.
And also concentrate on a professional football career.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to take on. It's a lot to take on. But through that type of stuff, I was developing quite a lot. So when I was saying about myself, it was the first time of limelight, really, I had to focus on myself. Because at that point, she was getting better and she was good and she was coming through. But then, obviously, I hit that point at that point. So, and then that was the change. So at 24, I'm just trying to work out, you know, who I am, what I am, where I'm going, and what else can I do?
Wow. And did you have at that time, did you have any, you mentioned Alan Ball earlier in your career, but was there somebody who was there to say, right, this has happened to this player, this has happened to this player, these are people you should speak to because they can help you with this transitional element into Civvy Street or potential coaching roles? Did someone then put their arm around you or did you have to figure this out yourself?
No, I was totally isolated at that point.
Wow.
I was totally isolated, even with lads that you played with, their careers going forwards and they're doing
Kit
and obviously kids that I grew up with, you know, but their careers going in different levels and, you know, but you're the one sitting there trying to work out where you are and what's going on.
Yeah.
So it becomes that. And for them, it's a really difficult process, right? It's a really difficult process for them because they're like, I don't even want to think about that from my point of view. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the scary thing from their point. So, you know, it becomes a really difficult thing and it becomes a really, really isolating problem.
What did you draw on at that point, though, for strength? Just yourself? Was it your wife?
Yeah, Angie's great through all of that, but family, really, just family. It's such a big family, so, you know, they really helped me through. My brothers were brilliant. In fact, a part of the process was really one of my brothers, which helped. This kind of was an influencing turning point, really.
Yeah.
Because he was a photographer, would travel around the world. Funny enough, he was a sports photographer. So there'd be sometimes I'd be playing, he'd be taking photos on the side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Bit of stick going on between the pair of us as he's like, yeah, that was good. He'd be giving it, good one. That was a good cross. Throw the ball at him. But so he did a lot of voluntary work for Mother Teresa Homes out in India.
Right.
He literally bought me a ticket. So he could see me going through a process. I was sitting 6 months dark, not really influencing. And he bought me a ticket and he said, come on, we're going to go. You need to see life on a different level. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of understood it, but got it from that perspective. So I went out there. Went out for a good period of time. Just did a load of voluntary work, was going into the orphanages, doing, Caligat, which is where people die and that type of stuff. Was sitting there holding hands and, just creating a process of working out actually who I am and what I'm all about.
Wow.
But I needed that little period of time just to figure
reflection.
To figure out those processes.
But that would have been very distracting as well. So in fact, that's a good bit of therapy in a way because you're in that situation. So I've been to India when I was a lot younger, and I could not understand the level of poverty and the gulf between the rich and the poverty as well. It's really strange, and it certainly was an awakening for me because I hadn't seen that before. Did you find that really distracting because you're suddenly seeing all these people that are far less fortunate than, you've...
No, I found it totally the opposite. I actually found it the most mind-opening process I could go through at that point. Because I'd lived it, I'd lived a charmed life, but up to that point, I'd done so many things. For him, it was a brilliant thing. He knew I needed some balance. He knew I needed to see. Within all the poverty, all I saw was happiness.
Was it a spiritual journey as well then? It was.
Yeah. It was a really mind-opening process to, what have I got to feel sorry about my life for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's actually, I've been so lucky, instead of that negative feel that I was feeling, It was actually the opposite.
So you went from being, well, I don't believe you would have been a victim mindset anyway. You don't strike me as that kind of guy, but you would have, of course, felt bad for yourself because you had this incredibly promising career. But for you to flip it and go, life's not bad.
Yeah.
So that was a brilliant bit of recovery, actually, going to India.
But then it was from that point of view that I looked at it and thought, do you know what? I need to try and work out a plan here.
Yeah.
I need to work out a plan. And I know I just want to give back. I want to be in a situation that I'm doing it. So I actually started to put some processes in place while I was there to get my head right. And I knew, so that's why I came back, started to do my coaching badges, wanted to be in youth development, never ever wavered from that. Did it for 25 years, wanted to be back, giving back to the kids and building relationships and building those things. So what we're trying to create is meaning and purpose. Life's about meaning and purpose.
Absolutely.
It's about finding things that actually enthuse you and make you want to get up and want to get involved and do things. And that big part of my meaning and purpose, why I was, doing all of those things to get to that point, had just gone in a day. So now it's about creating what that new meaning and purpose piece could actually look like. And
that's incredible.
And youth development was my thing.
Yeah, that's really good. Nice to understand that. I didn't know that about the India piece.
Yeah.
And often we need those moments of reflection and actually understand, in the grander scheme of things, yes, woe is me, things are bad, but you're right. Perspective, it always brings a much better view of things and awakens. It clearly awoke something in you, or it was already there, but helped you recover from what had gone on in the past to then focus on the futures. Like you said, you work with kids, young lads. You had 2 stints, Portsmouth Academy. You must have worked a lot with Orphs as well.
Yeah,
in that capacity.
Yeah, we did.
So you must have worked with some other wonder kids. Can you talk about some of the most promising youngsters you worked with?
So
did you give them an Allen ball kind of arm around the shoulder?
Yeah, no, there was lots of that. There was lots of relationship building. No, I still do now. What's great is all the kids that, but even, it's a weird thing because even the kids like the kind of Chaplins, Matt Ritchie, Joel Wards, all these boys that I had in the first stint, Marlon Pack.
Did Joel go to Swansea? I loved him coming to us. Yeah.
So Marlon now, obviously club captain.
Great goal.
But Marlon was one of the babies at that point. I think he was 13 when I first stepped in as academy manager. These relationships you have with lads over a long period of time, and it's great. I did it so I'm doing the TV, I do the commentating for some of the Pompey games at the moment. We sat on the gantry, there was myself, Paul Hardiman, who was one of my coaches in the academy at that point, and Marlon. We all had a little bit of a moment, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Marlon looked at me and went, Kelza, what's happened with your hair? It's gone really grey. I'm like, mate, see this? This is a lot of where you started. So, those types of things are just great, really. No, it was capturing those things and trying to understand that, what is going to be my purpose, what is going to be my reasonings for wanting to do. And the nice thing is I had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, of course. And with lots of brilliant people as well.
Any of these feelings that these lads were going to get, I'd felt them all, and I'd seen them all.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a natural.
So they had confidence.
They had confidence in me because they knew that you'd been
absolute kudos.
You'd kind of been in that process.
Authenticity. So you worked with Marlon, and Marlon has been getting a bit of stick because he's not the fleetest of feet, is he anymore? He's 36 now, I think.
He never was the fleetest of feet, by the way.
He wasn't, but he could still cover the midfield quite well. Yeah,
technical footballer.
Yeah,
as we can see, he can spray ball 70 yards.
Yes,
so there's a lot of technical proficiency in what he
and his leadership. And I think that's developed a lot very well. And I know that he has a very positive influence on the squad. And you can see that when you see some of the YouTube shorts with him in the team. There's clearly a lot of love there for him. He has been getting a bit of stick because I just think the balance in the midfield's been. Don't know if that's selection or just availability because we've got the most injured squad in the world, but the January transfer window has absolutely changed that squad immeasurably. And Richard Hughes, I think, doesn't get enough plaudits for what he's done. I think he's done a great job. I'm sure other people are involved, but Marlon seemed a different guy, with Ebou Adams next to him doing all that.
Listen, if we're going to talk about technical football, if you want to go down that route, it's a balance. The thing about sport and team sports, it's all about balance. Marlon plays a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you try and play him in a different way, it doesn't work.
Right.
So what you're finding now is Adams See, Adams alongside him does all the things that we want Adams to do. Goes, puts his foot around, goes, gets stuck in, which gives Marlon the freedom to go and play and express himself the way he wants to play it.
And Swift apparently
if you look at Jonathan Swifty the same in that little 10 role, is a natural footballer.
So good.
Yeah, I want to play.
It's like a new signing.
Because you're using
people in the right place.
The right place, right link.
Oh, honestly, it's just such a different team. Sorry, I don't want to go too much into that, but so you've had a really good perspective of Pompey as a club as a whole being a very significant part of that for a long time. What's the total stint for both academy?
I think I must have been 21, 22 years. Yeah.
So you know the club inside out.
I know the club
more than most.
Yeah. Commentating and it's quite easy. Players, well, obviously the players are changing quite a lot.
Yeah, but they're inextricably linked. And I think there was Ebu knew Marlon before he came, and I think that was a reason for him to come as well. But it's just great to see when you see Pompey start to click like that. It's just, and you can see it changes so many people's weeks in the city because it means so much to most of us in the city, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And just to see that, and I'm glad Mourinho's got a smile on his face again. 2 massive wins on the bounce is brilliant for the club. So what have you seen? You were there during the Premiership years as well. I know this could be quite a difficult conversation. So how has Portsmouth developed as a professional club? Have we cleared up lots of things that were probably not done correctly? Are we a lot clean now? And the Eisners that's a completely different subject, isn't it? So what are the Eisners like as the owners? What are they like?
Do you know what? It really is interesting because I mean, I've sat with Michael on numerous occasions, especially when they first came in, because obviously they wanted to talk about the youth a lot and understand the processes. So, very calculated, extremely bright man, as we all know. And you don't be a CEO of his levels if you haven't got those things about you. But, I think definitely, trying to the business of sport and where it is now. I mean, let's be honest, look, there's the thing. So I was asked a few weeks ago, I did the radio, I did the commentary for the Arsenal game. And afterwards, the Pompey fans are like, we need players, we need to do this. And I'm like, 100% get it, right? I said, but we all understand where this club is now. If you go back to the Premier League days, as I said, I sat in boardrooms in the Premier League days, and with the Gadamax of the world and what was going on.
Sasha,
And, the club was obviously at its, Harry got, unbelievable business going on with, some of the best players you'd ever see.
Amazing.
Like
we get
the Arabs of the world. Well, it was Harry again being very much of that relationship manager.
How was he never an England manager?
Well,
it's mad.
That's a big question, isn't it?
I think he would have absolutely got the best out of the England team, easily.
The Sol Campbells of the world, he changed his career and helped these types. So Harry had that naturally, which, was a bally trait as well. But Harry was all about football family and that type of stuff. So very similar things. But obviously he grew up the West Ham days with the Bobby Moores of the world and, that group. So, same era, same things, same understanding. So you learn so much about football at that point. And that's basically his relationship building was just on another level at that level at that time, where probably it wasn't happening at other clubs. Like the Paul Mercens when Paul talks about Harry getting him back and,
Paul Merson was absolutely pivotal in that promotion year. He was incredible. I couldn't believe we signed Merson anyway.
Yeah.
But I think the season before we had Prozinecki, we just had these mad seasons.
Yeah.
But Merson, I know there's a story behind that. I've heard it on one of his podcasts. To suddenly have that quality in the team, which absolutely catapulted us towards the Premiership, was incredible.
But there was the outlays in the management of the club at that point. Yeah, it was being managed, and it was, but
the fiscal management wasn't great.
It wasn't great. Yeah. It wasn't great. And you could feel like, the infrastructures weren't really there of the club. We were up in Southampton training and that type of stuff. So
near Eastleigh.
Near Eastleigh. Yeah. And there was opportunities to buy things, but we didn't buy them because we didn't really want facility-based stuff. So you're like, well, we're spending fortunes on not that. But so there was that feeling behind it of
potential mismanagement in certain areas.
All reasons why you want to manage it in a certain way. But that's why I would say now, I'd say to anybody about this new regime and the way that he is, he's very much
considered
about the management of how you sustain, how you build, how you grow.
Okay.
And when you sit with him for a certain period of time, you understand that he is all about management of that
process.
Yeah. I mean, I asked him why Portsmouth Football Club.
Yeah, great
Why
question.
Portsmouth Football
Yeah,
Club?
why
You know,
Portsmouth
I
Football
know
Club?
you've looked across clubs
Yeah.
across Europe, because that was the point of when they were looking, and very, very calculated in the fact of, well, everyone else has got massive debt and you don't.
Yeah, because he bought it back off. Was it him who bought it back off the fans?
Off the community fan club.
That's right.
And we were all running off zero budgets at that point, so we were running it very much as a community club. What comes through the gate, we have to produce. Of the levels, so you weren't you weren't buying into massive debt.
Yeah.
Whereas he said, you know, I'll go and look at Reading, or I'll go and look at another football club, and you open the books and you got
red numbers everywhere.
You've got 140 million pounds of somebody else's debt.
Oh wow!
You never start a business on somebody else's debt. So very much considered,
right?
But that's what I'm saying. And also return of value and assets and players. Can we build the next one? So to give you an instance, they ran a media company in the States.
Yeah.
And they're film producers as well. But he would get people like Cameron Diaz. He got them out of the Disney Club, you know, when they were going through that stuff.
Yeah.
So he'd get them on a young thingy. He'd help build
contract them as a young...
help build their careers. And then by the 5th film, couldn't afford them anymore. But he'd have 1 to 5 of building. It's a bit like the process of growth, how you buy a Terry Devlin in. How you buy a Terry Devlin. You develop him, and you know, if he outgrows you, that's okay, because then you recoup the money, you start again. So he's very much, you know, in the process of managing the club. And it's very hard to argue, right? And this is where the Pompey fans were screaming, you know, we've got to buy players everywhere. He's very much like, and if you think about it, we were competing, but until we lost Shaughnessy, you lose all your senior boys out of that squad in one hit.
Your true championship players.
100%. Now you've got to manage a situation. So I said at that point in January, he's got to do business in January. Now he knows that, so he's not calculated enough to say I need to spend at some point, but I need to manage what we spend.
But it was really measured.
It was very measured. It was very measured.
A Paraguayan winger from Santos in the second. How long have we been courting this player, and how we known about? So it's clearly really focused.
If you look at Adams, he's
what a boy, the Derby boy.
But he's walked straight in.
We sponsor him, by the way.
Do you? So he's walked straight in, and on minute 1, he's been so effective.
Because he's got that dog.
But Derby let him go. So the point is, there's always political reasons for maybe a player not doing well there or something happening. So you've just got to look at the market in a different kind of way.
Quite right. It's not black and white.
It's not.
Why are we spending $5 million on a striker because Colby's drawing blanks?
So if you're Sheffield United, so this is what I'm trying to say to the fans. Okay, Sheffield United turn up and their budget, their
player budgets.
Are they getting £100 million worth of process at this moment? West Brom, Leicester. It's not just about throwing money. It's more about managing how you do and the growth. And to be honest with you, the club has never, I don't think, been on a more stable footing than it is right at this moment in time.
Well, look, we are on the back of actually a really good January transfer window, and we've got. I truly believe Mourinho is one of the most promising managers in this country. Following, the transfer budget he has. And it's really good to get that insight, because you're right, I've been in the terraces talking to people going, why aren't we buying?
Yeah, I know, we need another centre forward, we need this.
I think hopefully we'll buy Ali at the end of the season. He's slotted straight into the system really well on the left. When Murphy's back, there's great competition for that shirt. I know Segacic, I prefer him probably at 10. Swift suddenly put the 10 shirt on him. What?
Yeah.
I can't see Segacic get back in the team. And Caballero on the right.
And obviously you've got Connor Chaplin to come back.
Exactly.
So you've got all of these things. But this is the point. So Ali, where he's come from, he wasn't playing.
He wasn't in the Luton team. So in the tier down.
He wasn't in the Luton team, in a tier down. So it's not always about the process.
That's really good perspective.
It's about a lot of insights, thoughtful looks. And I would very much say that the Islanders are very thoughtful,
measured,
and very
professional
measured in what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's really good synopsis. Actually, I appreciate that because, I mean, even I sometimes do some bits with Jack on Express FM, and I start getting quite animated, but I don't have the insights that you have, and because you've seen the glory days,
of course.
But that was haphazard fiscal management. It was kind of, we'll work it out. Well, it's kind of credit days. I'll be fine. Johnny Tucker, football genius, 70k a week, happy days. You know.
And how much does a football club suffer from that point after?
Yeah, well, we nearly lost. We nearly went to full liquidation.
And that's the thing. And that's the point, isn't it? It's the point about management of sport at that level. It has to be quite, nowadays, so calculated on what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you find your club in a very quickly downward spiral.
Well, it's the club. I think the other bit they've done really well is that they've sorted the ground out, all the concourses, everything's much better, it's much cleaner, much more room. You get a drink very quickly, so that's great. And I think they've developed that really well. So actually, you're quite right. I think the future's looking very good. 3 more wins, I think, we'll be fine for the season. And that's definitely achievable, isn't it? So,
it is.
Do you see yourself figuring again at Pompey?
Do you know what? It's really funny because the last time I walked out, because it's been such a long journey and, with a few hats on, the last time I walked out, it was a bit of a, will I ever turn up?
Yeah.
But then I don't, then I kind of leave it and then the phone goes, oh, would you like to do the TV? Would you like to commentate on it? And you're like, oh, here I am again. I'm getting pulled back in again. I'd never say never because of,
it's a big part of your life.
It's a big part of my life.
And you've invested so much time already.
I've never moved away from the city in that point. The only other job I did in youth development was down at Portsmouth. So that's where I started. So literally I've been along the South Coast. And it was a conscious effort. It was a conscious choice as well. I got offered some good jobs actually down the years. But my kids, I wanted to see my kids grow up. I didn't want to be a journeyman coach or do you know what I mean, manager at that kind of level.
You stuck to principles.
I stuck to the principles and morals of what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. Yeah.
And has that that must have played out in your professional life? You've not just done coaching, you've had other bits and pieces on the side. I'm sure you've probably done some consultative elements as well. But with your journey as a professional sportsman, with that abrupt ending and then knowing that there's no support out there and what you've gone through, thousands and thousands of athletes will have gone through too, that's kind of built something in the background in your mind, and you've now developed something on the side, our equilibrium.
Yeah.
Really, but my understanding is you're building this brilliant network of ex-pros and current professional sports people from different sport, but have lived that life of discipline and reward and success. And just a bricklayer that works for us wouldn't know anything to do with what you've gone through or a professional sport. So you do need that network to work together. So can you give us a bit of insight into that and what drove you to build that?
Yeah, so as I said, I think, from my story, where it's gone and how I felt and what it brought, the problems that it brought, and the solutions I had to try and create to get over those problems, it's a little bit like, and there's so many athletes that just go through the same things all the time. So it's problem solution stuff. And I've seen it over 40 years, managing it. So it was something that's always been quite close to me, but never really understood how I could deliver it. But there's a lad that's one of the directors with us, is a lad called Andy Ramage. Andy played with me in Ireland, funnily enough. In Ireland.
What, Sligo?
In Sligo, down there. But he had to retire at 21.
Right.
But he went into the city and become a big oil tycoon in the city. He was a big trader in the city.
Yeah.
But he actually grew his business on, because trading's very much up and down.
Yeah, Kent was in trading as well.
Resilience, development. Can you deliver? Right? And
you've lost 2 million overnight. Right. Can you get up for work?
100%. Yeah. So he built in the end, he was only employing athletes, because he only employed athletes, cricketers, golfers, whatever, because they had the mentality and thingy. And he also built it on a framework of we are office athletes. This is the way we're going to approach life and business the same way we've approached our sport. And this is what had defining
unquestionable commitment.
Questionable. So you can imagine the markets. So on a Tuesday and a Thursday is drinking nights in town, right? But on a Wednesday and Friday, they'd hit the markets completely. They're like eyes off the ball. People aren't ready. They're not resilient to what we're doing. And they just flood in the markets Wednesday, Friday, and it went bang. 7 times quicker. He grew it massively because they all had the same ethos, understanding.
Wow.
So it became...
But he had built a team as well, so you had that same team spirit.
Same team environment.
Yeah.
So he understood that was the mentality. So he was going through that while I was going through this, but we had very similar problems. And the lad that actually took it over is a lad called Johnny Barrett. Johnny was a rugby player. He played for Wasps, but had to retire at 25 with a bad back. So we sat around one afternoon and was talking about it. And he went, yeah, I went through that. We went through that. I went through the same problems. What support did you get at that point?
Yeah.
Nothing. I had to go out and find it. So it was really reflectively on stories, but it was what I was seeing, why I wanted to create it. But I didn't really have the vehicle. But Andy being Andy, he's also now a development guru. This is what he does. Yeah. But he's created an app called Dry. And what Dry is, it's for...
DRY.
DRY, Dry.
Right, okay.
And it's people that don't want to drink. So 1 year no beer, he created a thing called 1 year no beer in the city. So he created one of his partners because he was literally had a problem with drink at the end, if he's honest, and had to, it was affecting everything, his life, his marriage, his kid, everything. Yeah. But then he was like, I want to try and create it. So they created a thing called 1 year no beer, which literally was a movement. It was a movement. I'd call it a social movement.
Okay. Did it pick up momentum?
Massive.
Really?
This thing went global. He took it. It was in 38 countries. 1 year, it was literally you opt out of drinking for a year. But, in the social elements, you could actually say, no, sorry, I'm doing this. And,
Okay, so it made it an easier rather than having to justify why you don't want to drink.
Because of social pressures at work.
Yeah, you do have to justify it if you stop drinking.
Social pressure in the city is like that. So they created a movement, and the movement just grew and grew and took. But from that, he grew a thing called Dry. So Dry is now an alcohol-free app that people go on, and it's like, he does a lot of exec training around it, how it changed his performance, how it changed his life, basically. But become a really powerful tool. But that was my first step into actually, this is how we can create the community we want to create. All it is firstly about building the community, the social network, the social understanding, what's your link? So if Graham comes in, what's Graham's interests? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And it becomes a bit of a spider, really, because then what happens is, then senior networks become important, because there might be, a young lad who wants to get into trading, which, funnily enough, we've had a couple of them. But so then Johnny will take them and sit and talk to them, and this is what we do. So you can see how it works. Then the black books become really important. And
of course,
and then the notes about where you want to go. But what we found is, so we did a lot of pilots. So that became the vehicle. Now an app brings the community together. But actually, we did a lot of work on. Did a lot of pilots. Went into clubs, spoke to young pros at different levels. But ran a pilot. And in the pilot, we had about 26 athletes, all levels, all ages, right? From 18 to 40. Right. Where are you? And what we found was we'd set some process up, but then in the end, they end up facilitating each other. So the 40-year-old will be telling the 26-year-old, well, unless you actually start your coaching courses now, if that's the way that you want to go,
there's going to be a cliff edge.
If you're telling me at 34 you're going to start, you're not going to be 40 until you're ready to actually do the job.
There's a big
now
process
you
here.
Need to be.
I learned this. Let me help.
100%. Now you need to be doing the work.
So it's peer-to-peer advice and management.
Advice management. But what we found from it is there's only really 3 core areas that everybody ends up falling into. Entrepreneurship, because a lot of them want to go down that route. Quite a few of them, and have the capabilities of doing that, but don't know anything about it. So now it's setting a platform of how you start it, why you start it, people that have done it. I've got so many really cool athletes that are now giving their business stories of how they got into it, how their mindset got through to that point. just a lot of information. Second careers is another big element. A lot of athletes just want to fall into a second career, but don't do any planning around it. So what we do is actually take it from its first infancy and go, okay.
And it's a safe environment for them.
Safe environment to sit, chat, talk, and away we go. And educate, because then it's, how you do build a CV, on a business CV, what do you do?
Yeah.
So there's like lots of different formats in that area that they can pick up really quickly, and then they can start to develop and use as they're going.
I can see that. Yeah.
So if you think about that as its own entity, but then we get companies involved. So companies now going, well, I'd love to employ athletes, which is what we get a lot of anyway. So now,
a little bit, in a way,
guys that we
provide opportunities for people.
We facilitate.
Yeah.
So we make sure that the bang for the community is, what are you going to do for our community? That is it. Once you lead with that line, then it becomes all about the growth of the community.
I can see.
And meaning and purpose, by the way, is the last biggest one, because we're like, you've got to start finding avenues
away from what you're used to now.
Your interests are going to be away from what you're doing now, because that's the biggest drop-off.
So self-reflection as well.
Self-reflection.
Which you said you didn't look at until you were suddenly 24 years old and you were looking at the edge of the cliff.
And it was on top of me. And I've had a lot of conversations with associations with them. I'm like, especially with the PFA and stuff like that, which, listen, they do some really good stuff. But I'm like, but there's never any management of all of this stuff. It's literally, you get to a point of crisis, then you have to make some of the biggest decisions of your life. You're not ready to do that. Whereas what I'm trying to say with this community is, if we all plan and strategy, and you've got a place to ask questions open and freely, you've got other athletes that have been through stuff, we can all share experiences, and then just come up with the answers that you need to come up as an individual. It's not about telling you or, structuring you, go down that route. No, you need to find it, but let's just work it out.
Here's the environment that you're probably going to have those conversations that might actually waken something in you, because somebody's already done it and it's just open. I've gone on there, so you let me have a look at all the bits and pieces, and I was just looking at all the current members, and I'm thinking, I know him. What's going? It's crazy. What I really like also is this is something. It's not an end of career thing. This is something, like you said. I think it's a network you get involved with early doors within your sports career. Not too early, but certainly start feathering your nest, building your network whilst you're still, or not. Are you saying it's
no? Listen, I mean, what's really interesting about that, and if you define it, the first question I ever ask anyone is, "What's the day you're going to retire?"
No one can ever tell you that.
You can be 18. What's the day you're going to retire? And the point is, you don't know.
No,
you don't know. So the point is, you need to start when you need to start.
Of course.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
At 18, you never knew at 21 this was going to happen with your knee.
I mean, there's, what's great with the athletes that have done their stories already, you take snippets from what they say. Gaz Evans being one, Gaz, he played for Pompey, but he was like, I was playing Russian roulette with my life because twice I broke my leg, but I still ignored it, and I still didn't do anything until I was right at a point where I had to. He said, what would your advice be? My advice would be, start as early as you can. Start to work alongside everything you do all the time. You're develop yourself all the time.
Absolutely.
Don't just think about one thing. Think about it all.
And we have the capacity to do that.
Of course we do. And I think it goes back to that process of sport doesn't define, it's not just who, it's only a small part of what you are and who you are. It's not your only defining factor. It's not your only defining
factor. So, Mark, I agree with everything you said, but from a perspective of someone who's never hit any heights of sport or done that, it'll be a difficult thing to understand the mindset of a sportsman. It would, because the top elite sports people have a different mindset. And that's why your man was saying, I'd only employ these people, because they understand the output from hard work, investment, commitment, every discipline, all those elements that we want everybody to have in a business, right? Because those are key facets to success. But it seems if you've grown up as a young sportsman, these are things that are just innately within you. Of course, you may have learned it on the way, but it's there. They're rigid, foundational elements of you as a character.
And they really are. You don't know that. You don't know until you're challenged with it. So the point is, it's just me dropping on that early challenge to say, start to work it out, because all of those skill sets that you create every day, the disciplines, the structures, the strategies, the problem solving, because sport is an element of problem solving.
Everything's
you
different.
learn to problem solve massively. So if you can use them in every asset of your life, if you start to understand that this is what your superpowers are, your strengths are, you can develop them in any walks of life you want to take them on and go and work in. But you've just got to understand that these are what they are. And that's why I've done all those athlete stories. And, I've got a trailblazing group now starting up with the 8s to 24s, because, they might be told at 20, that's it. But my son went into Reading, and Liam was a young pro at the club, but he went off to America and did a 3-year, 4-year scholarship. But he spoke to all the young pros and the thingies, and he's gone to he's done so many things in a short period of time. He's tried to be a pilot, he's gone into the Navy. But as he said, I've sat there and I'm sat on a board panel or the other side, and I've got all these commanders drilling. What do you know about discipline? And he's like, mate, this. Yeah. When you've had a bad game on a Saturday morning, you've got to come back on a Monday. You learn. But it said all those experiences that I've had through my period of time, I'm using in what I want to go and create now. So it's just to start to understand that actually there's so many good things can roll on. When you feel like your whole life, a rug has just been pulled, it's like, okay, I get that. And there's got to be a time of reflection, which reflection becomes a big part of the app soon enough. Yeah. But then you're going, okay, right, what can you do? How can this now be used?
This is what I like. This is what I'm good at. And sorry, just coming back to that, when I was saying, as a sportsman, these are all your qualities, you wouldn't have known those are your qualities because you were just playing, weren't you? You were just loving life. And then at no point would you have gone, oh, I'm here because I'm brilliant at this. I'm disciplined. I train hard. You wouldn't have known that consciously. You just did it.
I was on a roll.
So someone would have said, do you know what, mate? You are this, you are this. And did that happen ever where someone said, Mark, listen, mate, you're a switched on guy.
Do you know the first time, as I said to you, the first time I stumbled across it is when I went to India. It was the first time I actually looked at myself, and this is I actually looked at myself and went, do you know what? You're all right, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good elements about you,
of course,
that are actually quite nice. Yeah,
you've been blessed in ways.
But I never had time to think about it or ever reflect on it or work it out. So what I'm saying is, if somebody highlights that to you, it's like, no, just go and think about that for a while.
Yeah,
it's fine to think about it, and no one's saying you don't. You shouldn't be there focusing on your sport and your life. Grow on everything, and you'll find it a lot nicer journey.
But I know you've set this much larger thing that's bigger than Mark Kelly, and you've got all these wonderful people involved. But are you still, because you have a coaching mindset, you want to help people, you get a lot of job satisfaction out of that, hence developing these cracking kids that have come through. Some now, Marlon and Richie are both at the end of their careers now, and you were there at the beginning when they were nippers.
Yeah.
And you've seen them through that whole career. So you've got that paternal element to it too. But do you still find that? So people coming in looking for, they're potentially a bit lost. Is that your coaching, you coming through as well? Is what we're seeing?
I think so. It's that. Do you know what? I think it is that protection element.
Yeah.
Because when you live something and you feel something, it's very hard to argue against it. I've had room conversations, and I've had a few people say, "I think we do that," or "Okay, that's interesting, right?" But or no, maybe poo-poo it a little bit. I think it comes down to the process of understanding. It's an understanding thing, Graham. I think I understand it because I've been in it at the time, and I actually felt it. I've seen it. I've seen the best bits. I've seen the worst bits, and I've seen the bits where what it does and how it breaks people if we're not careful. And it's a real grey area that needs to be challenged, and that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to challenge it.
So how can sports people get in touch and try and become part of this? Because it's an invite only currently, isn't it?
It is at the moment because it's on a soft launch. It's going to launch properly. I just wanted, there's groups coming in that is just starting to come in. So we'll have a proper launch in about 2 weeks' time.
Excellent.
But anybody that wants to just go to the App Store, put in our Equilibrium, try and sign up, and if you're an athlete.
Can people connect with you on LinkedIn, Mark Kelly?
Totally, yeah. You see me all over LinkedIn at the moment. It's
I follow you on that.
The campaigns are getting bigger.
Yeah,
but listen, any way that anyone wants to connect. But yeah, LinkedIn's usually a really good one. Or just go to the app, sign in, and while you're inside the app, you can go back and forth.
Excellent. Yeah, I was navigating my way through it. So it's ultimately like a social media platform, like Facebook, any other. It's encapsulated within that. It's a secure environment.
Yeah.
You only get invited to go in, and there's forums. There's lots of courses that you could do there as well.
Yeah.
And I think lots of them provoke you into that reflection mode as well, which is really good. And it looks like it'll be something that'll be very, very, very useful, especially if it does attract those professional sports people from any sport who are kind of going through a similar thing and a similar mindset and being around like-minded people. It could be an incredible resource of phenomenal people. It's quite exciting.
I think the most powerful thing of it's very difficult when you're in a process of that and people look at you with a perceptive eye.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do I talk to about this?
Yeah.
You often find yourself like, who would I ever chat to?
Yeah.
Something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And trying to find an answer because, when you meet people, it's funny enough, it happened to me. I never ever was starstruck really. But when I was a kid, Kenny Dalglish was my
Liverpool legend.
Yeah. He was my thing. But when I first got on the Ireland team, he came over. He came over because obviously half John Aldridge.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Half the Ireland team, Johnny Wheeler, half the Ireland team
Yeah.
were playing. And Kenny came over and we went out on a night out and I met him. And I remember feeling so deflated and a bit disappointed. I'm thinking, mate, he's a bit boring, really. But he was just a lovely fella. Do you know what I mean? My perception of what that was.
A bit of a lad.
But he just was. He was
a professional.
Yeah, just very professional with what he did. I think he's a bit boring, actually. But it's But the point is that a lot of this perception stuff is, who do I talk to? How do I talk to them? Can I talk to anyone? That's the isolating feeling. It's horrible to sit there and go, I don't know. And that's why I honestly believe there's a lot of spiraling athletes when they get to a certain point. I mean, the stats will tell you. Stat shows, half, even on a financial front and that type of stuff, because they don't know how to manage anything.
Yeah.
They're in this guise of not managing their own lives.
They've been in a kind of protected environment.
They've been in a bubble, and it's like, it's kind of trying to break that down to say, look,
when that bubble bursts,
that's all nice.
It could be very dangerous.
We understand that, you've got to manage your own life. You've got to start reflectively looking at who you are, how you want to build yourself, and the things that you are actually interested in. And that's what really, that's what really gets me to the point of, because I've seen it. I've seen people that really struggle at the end of it. They're like, I've got nothing left. Where do I go? What do I do?
We spoke before this.
Exactly. Simple stuff.
But it extends beyond that. I think anyone who plays, we spoke briefly before, but if you play a fairly decent level in any sport anyway, there is still a strong commitment to that. For example, the guys will train Tuesdays, Thursdays, play on a Saturday. They help coach on the Sundays. They're in the gym Monday, Wednesday, all that sort of stuff. So that wraps around their normal life, whatever their normal life output is. And there's that bit. So you've got your two hats. And then when you come to the end, even at that level, when you get to your 35 or you get that injury, that's devastating.
Well, it's even harder at that point sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's like where it stops and starts. That's why I'm saying if you just go on that one question, what day are you going to retire? The bottom line is you've got no idea.
Yeah.
And, while you're with it, enjoy the ride of it, but just grow as a person.
Yeah. Understand that's not the only thing that you can be working on.
You need to work on. It's great and we love it, but it's just a little chunk of your life. It's just a big part. I did a thing. When I was in Ireland, I told you I went back there, but I started a football scheme in Ireland. It was one of the first ones. They call them FOS schemes. This is a football education government scheme.
Right.
And I started it in Sligo, and it was a lot of the street kids. You got a lot of street kids down there. It's an entertaining place, Sligo. But and I did it, and we had 36 kids on the course and that type of stuff. But there was one boy, and this is the thing about the understanding bit. that somebody said, what was your biggest success in sport? And basically this kid, his mum and dad were alcoholics. He was struggling, and, he was at a really bad place. Basically, I helped him become a gym instructor. So now I get a letter from him every year, his wife and his 3 kids, right? And it totally changed his life. For me, I always say that was my biggest achievement in sport. And it's not being fluffy, because it's like, all the things that happen to you aren't the process.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But
it's happened. It's like, but that was that changed that kid's life completely.
And that is the most rewarding thing. As human beings, is helping others. And if you're helping somebody get up to that next level,
100%.
What's more rewarding than that?
100%. So that's why this community is all about my meaning and purpose, give back. Yeah. Can I bring? And I'll push it to the extent, because I can be quite pushy at times. So, to try and get that, anyone in the community that's got a problem, because listen, if we can do it once, it's great. But if you can help guide 1,000 people in the way that, they need help and support, and it's a brilliant thing. It's one of those things that it would be a lovely thing to achieve. And
I can feel that from you. I absolutely can feel that from you. And I really hope that, and I think it will. I think it's a really, really great thing. And I've got a contact chap called Damien Hopley.
I know Damien. I've met Damien.
Yeah, Damien's done some stuff with the RPA, the Professional Association Rugby Players, so to help rugby pros. So probably similar mindsets to kind of, and Damien was a solid player, in the early 90s, played England Sevens, and he was had he been fit, he would have probably played a much higher level continuously in the late 90s. But he looked up, he ran the RPA, and I see those crossovers. And then of course you've got Ken.
He did,
as well.
And funnily enough, he did his knee injury the same year I did in '94. So when I was talking to him, we had quite a lot in common, myself and Dave.
Such a small world,
isn't
it? Yeah. Does he know about our equilibrium?
No, he doesn't. No, it's been a while since I saw him. This was probably about 8 years ago. I saw him on something else. Yeah.
Yeah, very intelligent guy. Yeah, lovely guy. So you were talking about development as well, and something that and I know it sounded like we're coming to the end of something, but there's some really stuff I really wanted from a personal perspective.
Yeah, sure.
I've coached kids teams at the rugby club, and because I've kind of where my sons were in the team, I'd offer my hat, and I do love coaching, and I found coaching men a lot easier than coaching kids. And what advice do you give parents or ex-players that are suddenly finding themselves coaching kids, and they might have a perspective on how things should be done, but of course you've got a group of lads in front of you, or girls if you're coaching girls, that do not have that upbringing you've had, so they've got different perspectives. How do you manage to get into the minds of all these kids to help them develop and see the greatness within themselves? And it's a tough job, isn't it?
It's a very tough job, and it's one that takes a lot of time to get to understand.
Yeah,
completely. I was talking to. So I'd do some sessions with some of our coaches at the club and that type of stuff. You might be the under-11s coach or whatever. So I'd go and put on a session, and they'd go, "How do you make that seem so easy?" Do you know what I mean?
I said, and the energy, and they're engaged.
Because of 25 years of being on the grass and working, and getting to know and getting to understand. But a lot of it's about, for me, it's about with kids. It's that simple process learning. So sometimes I think coaches want to go with wanting to create so many things that they want to create before they turn up. Do you understand? So like tonight, I want to go and get 6 points out. I want to get 6 points out. Let's work on that functionality, and that leads to that, and that leads to that. I'm like, she'll only get out one.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll stay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm happy to stay here because there's a lot of learning going on.
Yeah.
And somebody might be picking up a bit slower, or not quite getting to that point. But it's just having that patience, reflectiveness to go, okay, we're kind of here. And if you see that little bit of that understanding with that kid at that point, there's a massive win. Then you're winning. So walk away at that. You're happy to
but you've achieved something for that session.
But that's working with kids. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, when you're putting too much of it, adults can kind of take over.
And
it's like it's like you want to kind of adapt. As I said, well, this is my point tonight. This is what I want to get over.
It's an ego thing as well, isn't it?
It's an ego thing.
I always struggle
and you think,
with that,
I'm not learning, they're not picking up what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to communicate. But then you've got to bring it back to basics, do you know?
Yes, yeah.
Then you've got to bring it back to the process of, okay, it's fine. You know what I mean? We'll pick it up again tomorrow
Let's
night.
break that down to a much more simple way. And okay, you've got that stage. Let's go to the next stage.
Yeah.
Did you ever get frustrated and you must have done, get angry with the lads, and how did you manage that?
Oh, yeah, youth team, especially at youth team level at 18s, because then,
they're young adults, they're throwing the weight around.
Yeah, and there'd be times where, there'd be honest conversations to be had, and there'd be, challenges at different kind of level. I remember, and this is me, it's never proud moments, but you do get it. They had a tactics board. The 18s coach had a tactics board out. And I walked over, and the lads, they were a good team. There was Connor, there was Adam May, there was some very good Hunstrup. They was a really good group.
Brandon
Hunstrup.
Wow, I found I heard that name for ages.
All of those boys were in the same group. And they were a good group. The youth team coach is doing his bit with the board and all that. I just went over and picked the tactics board, threw it over there, and I'm like, lads, let's just forget about that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to basics. There's 11 players out there, and you're carrying 6 of them. So the 6 lads aren't doing the work. You're not doing the work. You're not getting through the work.
Yeah.
You're not approaching it the right way.
Nothing effort.
Here's the standards. Your standards are here. I'm not even talking about where you should be or where you shouldn't be. You just need to reflectively get back on the page of what standards actually look like.
Good.
Let's set the standards. Let's set the time.
So accountability.
Yeah. And then basically they go out and score 5 and they do what they do. And afterwards it's like, you shouldn't need to be told what standards look like in an environment you've been in such a long time.
So that's
the point. That's the step progression. When you work through age groups and you work up the ladder, it's very difficult going to pick a group and go, right, you take the under 11s, because when you've worked through the systems, you kind of see where that growth goes.
Yeah, and when they're more open to certain methods.
Certain methods and stuff you need to do.
Yeah, but it's highly complex regardless.
It is, but that's a lifetime of being on the grass with kids of all different ages. And patience. Patience is the biggest
thing. That's, I'd lack patience.
It's the hardest thing. Listen, we're all there, if you've not had a good day at work or you're going onto a training ground, sometimes it can be the most, why can't you get this? It's not rocket science. But to them at the moment, it's like, And the love of it, you've got to, youth development is all about that thing. I remember I came out of my office there was a bit of a kerfuffle going outside. The S&C coach was working with a group of under 9s on the grass. And I come out and they're all like hopping around on the grass. And I turned to my S&C coach. I said, what are they doing? He said, Kelza. He said, I said to him, you lot are like a bunch of frogs. Here they are.
That's the human spirit in action.
I'm trying to start work, and now they're all a bunch of frogs. Okay, this is a professional elite environment that we're breaking down here. But there it is. That's the lovely thing.
Yeah, but that was human. That was really human. Yeah. So the human element, we mentioned this a few times. We talked about Harry, we talked about you, we talked about Alan Ball, and how important that is in terms of a connection and helping people on their journey and understanding the value and the greatness that they have in themselves. And that's the wonderful thing of coaching as well. You can awaken something in them, a realization. Is that missing nowadays? Is that gone? Are we just processing procedure and forms and box ticking? It feels like that because it's definitely going that way in the corporate world for sure. Yeah. And you're seeing less and less characters coming up through. It's almost like people have just kind of, this is how to be a human, box everything, tick, 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 tick. And then progression is only via these certain gates that you've got gatekeepers along the way as well. It just seems mad for a person coming through in any walk of life now. How can we encourage more of that human connection? How do we, because I know it's a key element of you and your success. So is there something we can do more?
Listen, I think it is as simplistic as challenging it and doing what, trying to look at it in a certain. That's why this community is great, because it's all of those things.
Yeah.
But can we build something that's a bit of a different experience in a different way? So I think it's more challenging actually that isn't the norm. Those avenues aren't normal because we're human beings, and human beings are all about relationships. They're all about
let's
people.
Connect, let's talk and understand.
And spend time.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people aren't winning enough to spend enough time to do things. And, you know, my gran used to have a lovely saying. My gran would say, you know, the greatest thing you can ever give anyone is your time.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's absolutely a fact, because sometimes you just need to hear the right ear, or, you know, just to keep you pushing on the right direction. But it's that point where we don't feel like we've got that. Even, and as you said, the pressures of life, the way it is nowadays, communication is becoming a lot less. And we need to get back to a process where I think that, you know, communicate is so important, because that's the only way you build relationships, right? It's the only way you build relationships. And I think we need to spend more time doing it.
Less time on the bloody phone.
Less time on the phone and more time.
They're the most evil thing, aren't they?
They are.
I think. Of course, it's good. Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
They can be a brilliant way of connecting, but they can also be the other one. Yeah.
My problem is that, definitely. Yeah. I've got a real issue with the phone because I've got various social media channels that I'm trying to promote and all the other bits and pieces. So then you get drawn into it, and then suddenly I'm sat with my family and I find myself, my wife will be talking to me, whatever's going on in the kitchen, I'm just going, yep. And she showed me this video the other day of a guy, it's Steve Bartlett, you know, his podcast. Yeah. He got this behavioural specialist guy about communication on, and they were holding a bit of string. And he's saying when the string goes dead, that's where you've lost the connection with somebody when you're talking to them. And so they were pulling it taut. And then as Steve Bartlett was talking to him, he just gets his phone out. And then as he gets the phone, he just drops the thing and he's talking, yeah, keep going. And Steve, I don't want to talk to you. This is rude. He said, exactly. And then we did it again and he carried on pulling the string and he said, no, I've got this taut. It's fine. I'm still listening. And then he dropped the string, the other side, to say, well, no, this
I'm not interested.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is a real issue for kids growing up now. They've grown up with all of this stuff. We didn't. We talked earlier about having absolutely going out on your bike, fights, drinking, whatever it was. You were just out, weren't you? Yeah. And it was much more survival. You had to talk to people, and whether it's the police telling you off or whatever it was. Yeah. And now kids don't have that. They're kind of stuck on screens, and everything's about social media. Everything's about, and I think that's affecting their mental health as well. Sport's a great thing to bring kids away from the screen and get them into a team environment where they're learning about socializing stuff. Do you have any advice to people about that? And, you know, you're a father as well. How do we manage this? Like, do you do phone-free zones?
No, listen, I think what you say, I do. It's not something we can all get caught up in everyday life. Building relationships is, and the thing about relationship building, it's about non-expectation.
Not conditional.
Not conditional.
Yeah.
So like my kids, you know, I've never treated my kids as I'm the dad and do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's more about.
I moved.
No. But I'm saying there are certain disciplines where, you know, you have to be a parent and you have to lay some ground lines and you have to do that. But I think, you know, I always feel that to you kind of got to give in a relationship. You've got to give of yourself. You know, that you can't really define too many lines when you do it. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but what I actually mean is like, yeah, I am a parent and I'm a dad, but I've got to earn my own kids' respect. It's not something that they're gonna. I'm just
It's got to be
my actions, and it's got to be my showing love and my caring and my You like, if you need to talk to me, let's sit down, let's talk. Yeah. So it's more about, you know, that functionality of ownership that we have to, you know, there aren't expectations on it. You have to grow that. You have to work on it. Yeah. It's not something that just happens, and it shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't be someone that should just be able to go, I respect you because you're this or that. Yeah. You know, you have to earn it. And that was the thing with all the relationships I've had with people down the years. Put myself out, I'll make the phone calls, I'll track them. I haven't heard from you for a while. Is everything all right? Nice. Do you know what I mean? I've actually always tried to intend that's the way that it is. Because, you know, my expectations aren't you just pick up a phone. So like this senior members of sport, I sat in a group with a lot of bigwigs in sport, head of the RFU, head of the ECB. Right. And I'm like, look, we are the senior managers of sport. That's how I see it. I've been in it a long time. Yeah. So if we're not trying to work hard at making it better for the next generation and leading by example, showing, sharing, caring, communicating, you can't say to somebody things are a certain way, but then not do it yourself as a
You've got to practice what you preach.
What you preach.
Yeah.
And I think if we all did that,
gives you that. Yeah, validation.
It does give you validation.
I think that's the other thing is people are a lot flakier, it seems, nowadays. And actually, I've been caught short on that. Friends would hold me accountable and say, you're meant to call me, you didn't call me. I'm like, I'll be all right, mate. And then a few days later, I think, actually, no, why haven't I called that person?
Yeah.
I'll call them. And it's those, I do some little snippets of podcasts things, do some poetry, but ultimately it comes to these sort of messages as we don't try hard enough as humans to properly connect and actually check on your mates. People might be down, there might be some things going on, they might be going through a messy divorce or whatever, an illness. We don't do enough of that.
We don't do enough.
Yeah. When we're in a team, that happens naturally, but outside the team, you need to build that again, don't you, in your networks? And,
you really do. And you need to follow through with it. I think that's the point. It's just the caring, sharing, relationship thing. I think no matter what you come back to, I think the whole process of life, money, living, doing what you do, all that type of stuff, it always comes back to relationships.
Yeah, and the human connection.
And the human connection. How many people have you got in your life? What are you doing now? Where are you going? Who are you doing it with?
Yeah.
That's always central and sits in the middle. And I think you have to work really hard at trying to develop it.
Yeah. It's not a quid pro quo arrangement. You just give, and the rest will come eventually.
Absolutely. When you're sitting there with your kids and you're on your phone and they're trying to talk to you. But do you know what I mean? It's like, well, actually, I'll probably sit there and moan about you doing that all the time as a youngster, but I'm
the dad.
But there we
Make me
are.
a cup of tea. Yeah, you're right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of stuff. Really glad to have met you. I think you've got a really great thing with our equilibrium, and I think that's going to be bloody successful. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of interest in that anyway. But have you got anything you want to share before we go?
No, I've in your podcast. I've been watching them, and as I said, it's reflective. I watch Kent's, and you go through some of the same processes and understandings, and I think it's a great thing you're doing. Trying to spend in talking, communicating is everything. And as you said, it really helps. Well done, you.
Stop it
again,
Mark Kelly. Thank you so much.
Really
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.